Hey kids, welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. We're celebrating because it's the end. It's the end of the Scorpio mansion and eclipse season this week. Thank God. It's the week of November 21st through 27th. If you're listening to this podcast today, the day it comes out, we're sort of in the ultimate moment of Scorpio intensity because the sun is about to change signs. And we're done, Joe. We're done.
Thank God.
We're done. Now, would that it were magic or like a clockwork. Like, it's not like when the sun moves into Sagittarius tomorrow, we're all going to be like flipping around joyfully, doing the Jupiter dance, because life doesn't work that way. The astrological movement is a gentle ride through our evolution of consciousness. And it's not like we don't get to bring into the Sagittarius mansion what we experienced while we were in the Scorpio mansion, right? It's not like the slide projector show where,
But it's
terrible
like
analogy.
a different approach, right? Because we have changed signs.
Yes, everything does change. Absolutely, you're right. I love that term, actually. That's a perfect way of saying it's a different approach.
Same person, different approach.
That's right. Exactly right. Same life, same person, same narrative, same struggles. But yes, the approach is different, the perspective is different. And even with the sun's movement, like the sun through the 12 signs of the zodiac, when we say the mansion, the Scorpio mansion, use that almost literally. While we're in the Scorpio mansion, it's like we're in a house. The house is built, designed, and decorated by the Scorpion. It's dark, it's death-like, there are stingers everywhere. And so your perspective is, wow, I'm in a place where that's what's happening, where it's dark, where it's transformational. Oh, if I walk into that room, I might die, but I'll be reborn again, so that's okay, right? But that's the perspective, is the mansion itself, the sun. And so with the sun moving into Sagittarius tomorrow, we're now going to be entering the house that Jupiter built. Jupiter's the sign that is, Jupiter is the planet that rules the sign of Sagittarius. And so we go
And Jupiter is wealth and prosperity. Is that true?
Well, wealth and prosperity is part of Jupiter. What's the overriding principle there is abundance, and abundance in all forms, not just wealth and prosperity, but wealth and prosperity is part of. Jupiter is about everything that's expansive, right? If you think about the social planets of Saturn and Jupiter, right? These are the two planets that dictate the experience that we all have here on the planet. Where the outer planets are about our higher consciousness, the inner planets are about, us in bodies with feelings and thoughts and awarenesses. Saturn is the planet that creates the structures and offers the sense of responsibility and all the have-tos. And then the binary of the system is Jupiter's everything expansive, delicious, yummy, all the things we get to enjoy because we have structure, right?
Yeah.
You don't get one without the other. Joy without structure is chaos and ultimately death and destruction. Ultimately, and structure without joy is pointless. So from the perspective of perspective, today, Monday, the 21st, we are in the anaretic degree, the final degree. The sun is at the 30th degree of Scorpio, which means today's actually kind of an intense day from that perspective, because the sun, our conscious awareness, is saying to itself, have I mastered everything I need to know about change, transformation, death, and rebirth? Because tomorrow I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else, right? So today's a day where all of that rises up in a conscious awareness kind of perspective. And then we move into the Sagittarius mansion tomorrow. And indeed, the sensation of how we're moving through our lives will shift. No, it may not be like magic. It's not, again, it's not the movie version of it. It's not like you're going to click, and suddenly Groundhog Day is over and it's the happy last day. No, it's going to be just a Tuesday. And it's going to be the Tuesday after this wild, 4 weeks of Scorpio energy. But between the Sagittarius mansion starting tomorrow And the new moon in Sagittarius starting on Wednesday, setting us up for a new lunar cycle that is not an eclipse wormhole. And really and truly, from a generalized energetic perspective, today is the final day of everything that we have been through over the last month or so.
I gotta say, I'm looking forward to some lightness.
you and everybody, so. Well, and in fact, one thing I think that we'll feel a bit tomorrow when the sun moves into Sag is we'll be more energetically aware of the fact that both Venus and Mercury moved into Sagittarius last week. Right, so we've been layering out of this intensity in bits and bits. This is what I would call the final. But if you remember last week's podcast, we talked about the fact that Venus moved out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius. Forgive me, kids, I don't remember what day last week, but someday last week, the planet that rules our emotional body moved out of the most intense emotional sign into one of the most joyful, expressive signs to have Venus in. So back to perspective. Venus, as the ruler of our feelings and our emotional body, gives us a perspective, an emotional perspective when she's in Scorpio, that down below is the most valuable place to be. Like I like to say, love language when Venus is in Scorpio is intensity. But the love language in Sagittarius is stimulation, excite me, tickle my mind a little bit. Sagittarius is all about education and exploration and expansion of things we seek to know. It's the spiritual seeking archetype. So Venus in that fiery sign that likes a lot of stimulation and absolutely above everything else wants to learn and grow, we will and already are feeling a shift in how we process our emotions, because for the last 3.5 weeks, it was all about processing our emotions deeply, internally, at the level of death and rebirth, which is why grief and deep sadness were a part of so many people's experience. Now, if you were in a grieving narrative last lunar cycle, you're still going to be in a grieving narrative this lunar cycle, but how you process your feelings will leave you feeling lighter and feel a sense of expanded purpose for what you're learning, because that's the essence of what it is to have the planet of love, intimacy, finances, too. All of this means, more lighter approach to your financial insecurity issues. It's a much more comforting place for Venus to be. So a couple of days later, again, I don't remember which day, but sometime late last week, then Mercury moved into Sagittarius. Now, Mercury's not so happy in this sign. It's a sign of what's called his detriment. I'm going to vote for Mercury in his detriment in Sagittarius than Mercury in Scorpio along with Venus and the Sun of the South Node, because there's been so much deep intensity that every layer of less of that we're going to welcome. Detriment is a technical demarcation that says the planet is in detriment when they're in the sign that's opposite the sign of their rulership.
Okay.
So one of Mercury's signs of rulership is Gemini. Sagittarius is opposite Gemini. So that makes Sagittarius a sign of detriment for Mercury. But blah, 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 blah. Who gives a fuck about the technical reason? There's an archetypal reason that makes it make sense. That Mercury is challenged in Sagittarius because he's all about precision of communication. And Sagittarius is a mansion, an archetype of stimulation, ruled by that archer. The avatar of Sag is an archer. And he just has a compulsion to get those arrows into every little thing. So that much stimulation is overwhelming for the process of communication. We call that a sign of his detriment. But again, I'm voting for Mercury in a fiery sign ruled by the planet of abundance and prosperity and good fortune as a welcome change from the intensity of the last month and the lunar cycle that we're wrapping up. So those two ingresses already happened, and with the sun moving into Sagittarius and starting the mansion off in earnest tomorrow, now the integrating consciousness of ourselves, the center of ourselves, the sun consciousness, whose job it is to integrate and understand what we're feeling and what we're thinking. Now they're all in the same pot starting tomorrow. So the sun at the center is curious about what Venus is doing so that the sun can integrate how we're doing our feelings and our intimacy and our relationships. The sun is interested in where Mercury is because the sun needs to integrate how we're perceiving and thinking and talking. Because Venus has been hanging out with the sun lately, we've had all three of these together for a bit. Sun, Venus, and Mercury. Mercury's never far from the sun, but Venus is not always there. She goes on her little trips away from the sun. Feeling body, mental body, we were taken down by the deep intensities of that. But to have all three of them in Scorpio, conscious awareness, boiling cauldron of Scorpio energy, and Mars in Gemini, though that's a very different energy, masculine and intellectual with the Gemini sign, because he stopped moving during this last lunar cycle, he wasn't helping lift us up out of the depths and intensity that last month brought. But, and here's the big but, without death and rebirth, there can be no expansion.
Yeah.
Sag is all about growth. But we can't grow and expand in the beautiful way that Sag would have us unless we first die to self and release that which is going to inhibit our forward moving, often in the form of grief and wound and loss. And there's a beautiful elegance, for my money, in the order that we move through, that there's an elegance that we spend a month with the death, rebirth, healing, transforming energy in the basement of our psyche. Then we expand out. We celebrate, we move, and we will move and celebrate and expand more joyfully based on the surrender that we're just coming out of now. Now, I'll remind us all again, your life, your narrative continues. It's just the wallpaper's changing color.
Right.
But I think we will feel it. And with the sun moving into Sag tomorrow, within a couple of days, the sensation will really, I think, become apparent to people from the inside out that we're in lighter territory. Now, there's something kind of beautiful that's happening this week with Mercury and Venus that I think is also going to help us sort of shake off the wet of last week and the lunar cycle we're coming out of and into the sort of Sag sensibility. So let's start by talking about Venus and Mercury and how they relate to each other and what it means when they come together. So if Venus is hanging out with the sun and Mercury, that means at some point they're gonna hang out exactly together by conjunction. Mercury moves much faster than Venus, so normally he'd be ahead. But because Venus went retrograde, she was in a different place in the cosmos, and then Mercury's last retrograde, blah, blah, blah. This is all technical. Who gives a shit? Let's just say it this way. The point is that today, Monday the 21st, is the day that Mercury caught up with Venus.
Okay.
So even though the sun is still in Scorpio and at that anaretic degree today, Monday the 21st, so for anybody who listens from Tuesday on, I'm talking about Monday here, that the sun is still in this deep, intense place, and at the 30th degree, it's like the deepest and the intensiest of that. Inside that finishing up, the completion of the Scorpio mansion, heart and mind are congruent. Venus and Mercury in the same place. Well, isn't that like the struggle of being a human being? Is to get your mind and your heart in the same camp?
Yeah.
We want to say what we feel and feel what we say is accurate. We want to speak into things that we feel convicted of emotionally. We want things with our minds, and we want to make sure that we feel deserving of them in our hearts. All of the tropes about mind and heart in alignment come to fruition when the planet that represents our heart and the planet that represents our mind are at the same place, and they are together today at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So that means we're passing through an integration moment after a month-long visit to the psychic surgeon and the healer places. We kind of get like a little knitting together today of mind and heart. And then as the week ends, so now I'm talking about like Thursday and Friday of this week, both Mercury and Venus will trine Chiron. That means that mind, and this happens Thursday, mind is aligned with the healing presence. Friday, Venus sort of catches up and trines Chiron. That means those couple of days are an opportunity to receive healing in our hearts and minds very directly, because mind and heart are in that beautiful, flowing, triangular relationship with the great healer. So if we're coming out of the soup, and we move through an integration today, and then as we progress through the week, both our emotional bodies and our mental bodies meet up with the healer in a gorgeous way, like an integration completion moment, and both of them will move through the great eliminator angle, and both of them are going to create the inconjunct with the North Node. The North Node is where are we going? Where's the future? Where are we headed? What's our desire? Where's our Dharma taking us? The inconjunct suggests a fork in the road, an exit strategy. So with mind and heart coming together early in the week and then moving through a receiving of a healing energy while simultaneously being told by your navigation system, your exit comes up soon. Get ready to exit the free. I'm trying. That was funny in my head. I was going to try to imitate Siri. That didn't go so well, but you all know what I mean. We're being asked by the end of the week to get on another track based on a more integrated and healed sense of how we feel, how we think, and having those in the same orientation. Now, what's gorgeous about that being the end of the week energy, Thursday, Friday emphasis, is that Wednesday of this week, and this is the huzzah news, is the new moon in Sagittarius, the true ending of the eclipse season, and the beginning of the next lunar cycle starts on Wednesday. So, new moon in Sagittarius hits this Wednesday. This is Jupiter's new moon, as we've been talking. And most important, it's the end of the eclipse wormhole. I usually refer to the wormhole as the space in between the eclipse lunations themselves. But when the first eclipse is a new moon and the second eclipse is a full moon, that's only halfway through the lunar cycle. So really, the wormhole of expanded consciousness that eclipses bring is really from new moon to new moon at this moment. And so it's the end, kids. It really is. Again, not magic. I wish it were. I wish on Wednesday it'd be like, hooray, we're all done. But it really is a beautiful marker. And the fact that it's a Jupiter's, sign is a welcome blessing. In fact, this would be your sort of manifestation new moon, right? Because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and so he rules this new moon. And Jupiter is the planet of abundance, prosperity, and the idea that we manifest. What's kind of gorgeous about the new moon and what Jupiter is doing right now is that Jupiter is at an anaretic degree right now. He's at the 30th degree of Pisces. Pisces is the sign of the infinite field of potential possibility that all things come from. So there is no manifestation without Pisces. In fact, Pisces into Aries, that 30th degree of Pisces, 0 degrees of Aries, is called the birth canal of the zodiac for this reason. Mm-hmm. That when the consciousness is in Pisces, we're in formlessness and potential. That's how we manifest, right?
Yeah.
We turn within and we find the potential for what we desire as an inner equivalent. That's where, the laws of attraction say you got to feel what it might feel like to have the thing that you desire. By the way, that's about congruency between mind and heart.
Which is happening now.
Yeah, right, exactly. You think the thing you want, and then you pump yourself up with the felt experience of what it would be to actually have that thing. And that's known as sort of the secret to manifestation. And from an astrological perspective, a new moon is where we use our minds to say, here's what I want. Let me have that, a little more of that. I want it delivered. So because it's Sagittarius's new moon and Sag is ruled by Jupiter, the fact that Jupiter is very well placed right now, because Pisces is a sign that he used to be in rulership over. He's very happy. See, again, he's happy because he used to rule the sign. But what the fuck does that mean to people? Archetypally, I can explain it that he's happy in this sign because he's all about manifesting and creating new, beautiful, wonderful things that cannot happen without a direct connection to the unconscious where all things spring from. So to have a new moon in Sagittarius, while the planet of manifestation himself is so powerfully poised at the 30th degree of Pisces, we benefit. The intentions we set go further and deeper because the receiver of our intention is in the deepest place possible, 30th degree of Pisces. And by the way, not for nothing, retrograde, meaning turned within. And he's poised to go direct, in December, actually shortly, I think, and within the next couple of weeks, and then into Aries at the end of the year. So we take advantage of setting intentions for all things Sagittarian, like travel, education, expansion of all sorts, the manifestation desires you have. This is the spiritual seeking sign, right? Sag and Jupiter are all about learning more through exploring spiritual, concepts. So put that into your, intention setting mojo. And because Venus and Mercury are so close to the sun, and they're doing this beautiful sort of act of integrating, deepening the healing, and getting us on a new track. That new track energy is dialed into this new moon. So make sure that when you're setting your intentions during this Sag new moon on Wednesday, that you take into account that what you intend probably is going to require that you move in a new direction. And with our psyches in such a reformed place, we've just been through a deep healing, we can use what we've learned about who we are and how we want to go to set those intentions, but add with it a willingness to try the new thing, to take a risk, to move in a new direction, because that energy is part of what's happening this week with this full moon. Uranus is still hanging out with the north node of the moon, and Uranus brings the sudden and unexpected. The north node is where we want to go next, and so this is a go big or go home sort of intention-setting moment because there's a lot of power to move us fast in new directions. And we need to be prepared for that so that we don't flip out if we find ourselves suddenly having to pivot and jockey and shift a bit with what our plans are. That's got to be sort of built in to what you're intending at this time. And I think it's great that Mars, the planet that rules our behaviors and our actions, which are going to be necessary to make the things we intend, right? We build our lives with Mars. He's trining Saturn during this new moon, which means that our capacity to act, choose, and behave in certain ways that need to be in alignment with the intentions we set is working well with the responsibility guy that says, okay, make your choices big and expansive in the Jupiterian Sagittarius way, but don't frickin' overdo it, kids. Like, keep it sober, keep it right size. Mars and Saturn in a trine say, shoot your shot, but don't over-fantasize what you're capable of. which is such a big thing in this world where everybody wants the cash and prizes without the talent and the hard work to back it up. This is one of those moments where go big, but recognize what you're really capable of, or you'll just find yourself in a lesson down the line. And the last thing about how Mars and even Jupiter sort of in retrograde at the moment, and Mars retrograde at this moment, does indicate that intentions we set now may take time to work themselves out, especially because Mars is in this process, backward moving till mid-January and then wrapping up through mid-March. So we've got a lot of delays built into the next 4 or 5 months with regard to the things we want to create and do. And just keep that in mind as you go so that you're not setting intentions to have something by Tuesday of next week. So the last thing I want to talk about is actually something that I literally just made an error about in the last segment when I said that Jupiter's going direct sort of like, soon. But, I'm looking at my outline and I'm not sitting here memorized, the days that Jupiter goes direct, but it happens to be right with the new moon. It's Wednesday. That's actually outrageously powerful for us with regard to intention setting because of everything that I said in the last segment of the podcast applies that Jupiter carries our manifestations forward powerfully by being in this infinite field of potential and possibility. But the fact that he starts the day off in a retrograde posture, and then by the time we finish Wednesday and the new moon energy, he's turned around and moving direct again, that takes our intentions from the deepest place they could possibly be planted and immediately says, the psyche says, we can start pushing this out into the world. And then in late December, when Jupiter moves into Aries and spends the first few months of next year in that fiery cardinal startup sign, things that we're planning and preparing for during these couple of months, November, December, and early January, can have really powerful movement into the world in the first few months of next year, especially when Mars goes direct in mid-January. But the intention-setting moment that counts starts now. Have at it, everybody.
All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. This week we have an email in dream, and it's all over the place, and I picked it because it made me giggle a little bit.
Okay. Good enough.
I have friends, and sometimes I ask them, do you want a dream interpreted? And they're like, my dreams are all over the place. Like, I would have nothing to say. It's just weird, random crap. And this dream that we have emailed in today is a lot of weird, random crap.
Oh, great. Thanks. Let's see where it goes.
Well, I think it's interesting to talk about what does that even mean? Maybe it does mean something, maybe it doesn't. And so I'm curious as to what that means.
All right. Let's see me too.
Okay. Letty is writing in from Kilkenny, which is a major city in Ireland where she works. So she was in the dream. She was in Kilkenny, which is the city where she works, and she bumps into a very old friend. He asks me about this new phone shop, and I know where it is. On our way to the phone shop, we get word that someone has left an Apache pizza and chips in one of the pubs. We find the pizza and chips, but they're cold. We complain about it and leave. We find the phone shop, And my friend, whose name is Connor, begins taking pictures of it. I ask him why, and he says he's going to rob the store. I walk away from him and start walking back to where I started. On the way back, I walk over a bridge by Matt the Miller's, which is a famous pub in that city. And there's a Spanish student locked in the box singing Enrique Iglesias's Escape in Spanish for money. Then I walk past and bump into the wrestler Stone Cold Steve Austin. I just want some clarity on it. Thanks. Kind regards, Letty.
Alrighty.
So I just feel like this is all over the place, and each part is kind of funny.
Okay.
Does it mean something? Is it just like spaghetti at the wall, dream world? What's up?
Let us see. So we'll just dive in.
Okay.
All right. Do you know who Stone Cold Steve Austin is?
I just remember him from WWE. When I was a kid, my grandma loved watching WWE, so we would watch it with her.
I'm sorry. You watched wrestling with grandma.
WWE specifically with grandma.
Okay. Funny. Okay. I learned something new about you all the time, Zoe. All right. So he's a wrestler. Is this like the playful, not playful is not the right word. Is it the sort of, that fake wrestling thing, or is this people like beating each other up in cages?
Yeah, no, this is fake wrestling, the theatrics.
The character. Okay, so there's a caricature. All right, okay. Okay, so if Letty works in this city and she's in that city, then she's exploring the consciousness of chaos, lots of movement, you know, her world in the sort of public arena, you know, in the spirit of work and home being like, you know, a tension of opposites. This is very much about a public and out about in the world consciousness as opposed to personal feelings. That everything that the dream is expressing has to have something to do with stimulated thought forms based on being out in the world as opposed to like a dream about, you know, her private spaces. Because she's walking around her work city. Do we know anything about this friend that she bumps into? What does she say about she just bumps into an old friend?
Yeah, so we just know his name is Connor, and he's taking pictures to rob the phone store. That's it.
Okay. Because Letty is with Connor, and we can think of Connor not as Connor in her waking life, but the qualities of Connor in some ways are the key to the dream, because it's like if she's in this place exploring this element of her psyche, why does she have this particular friend with her? Now, if he's taking photos later in the dream, even if Connor's not a photographer in life, the act of taking photos is like, I have to know this. I have to remember this. I have to capture this information.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So I'm collecting, right? That's what we do with photos. They are records of things. And of course, the why he's recording, you know, is to rob this place. So there's got to be something about communication that isn't clean somehow. Again, you're right. This dream is freaking all over the place. But if we're going to rob a phone store, that means we're going to try to take something without exchange, right? You can have anything in the phone store that you want. You just have to exchange for it. You have to pay for it. So robbing the store, preparing to rob the store has something to do with, and because it's a phone store, I'm going to go with communication that doesn't feel clean. People sort of taking from you. So, you know, it's you're right. I'm absolutely bumping into like, what does this mean? It's like, it's got so much chaos in it. So, and I'm not feeling the through line, even though, yes, that's what a phone store means to me. And a robbing is an unequal exchange. But let me stop for a second, backtrack, and sort of walk through it chronologically and see if I can tell a story about the story.
Sure.
We start, of course, with Letty in her public consciousness. We're starting, then we go to in her consideration of how she moves about in the world. It's in the style of Connor or connected to Connor. Now, we don't have that information here because Letty's not here to tell us. But Letty, if you're listening, the psyche of how you're moving around your world has something to do with the way Connor moves around the world. because he's in your dream. Or I guess you bump into him in the dream. And so Connor's qualities then have to take you on a journey. And in the journey, everything is kind of like not in alignment, right? You get word that there's food to get, so you go there. So that's about, I look for sustenance because there's an opportunity to sustain myself, but it's cold. I go to a phone store ostensibly to sort of reflect some heightened communication capacity, but I want to rob it. So I'm out of alignment there. I'm walking over a bridge, so that bridges are about transition and joining disparate consciousness, right? If a bridge joins two things that are ultimately separate, a bridge is about integrating, and escape is about the opposite of integrating. Even a song in Spanish in the middle of a city in Ireland is a sort of disparate, these pieces don't fit. Mm-hmm. And then we finish with another sort of contradictory symbol of somebody who represents, on the one hand, physical prowess and masculine expression of strength and seeking victory. Only it's fake. Right. It's wrestling. So I don't know what to make of a dream like this in the absence of the dreamer. So the best I can do is sort of walk through the symbols and try to tell a story that Letty's in consideration of how she moves about in a world where nothing is particularly as it seems, that inauthenticity is everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that what we have to do is navigate all of these contradictions as we go. That's the best I got for you, Letty, without being able to talk to you voice to voice. But thanks for playing.
And thank you, Michael, for playing. I was so curious because I was like, this is chaotic. It's weird, Yeah.
It is indeed. I would love to know what was going on the day before this dream, like the day of the dream, because it is a reflection of chaotic thoughts and movement, and it's got to also be reflecting on some level the immediate experience that Letty was going through when she had that dream to help her process some kind of, stress. But thanks for the fun sort of try this. I did my best.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.